think we're ready to roll. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the stream. Timestamp that shit in the chat. We're ready to roll. What's up? How's it going? Who's here? It's Ann. It's Nance. It's Oscar. Good to see you. Good to see you. Someone dropped me a hot take on the recent AI hype. You know, that kind of question is exactly the kind of question that deserves AI. So you should just take it to, I'm just kidding. But really, I mean, it's thinking that knowledge and intelligence is, you know, getting a sufficient answer to any question. You know, that is the demonstration of knowledge and intelligence that leads people to this idea that that's intelligence, right? But I do love AI. And so I guess before I say a couple things about what we're going to be doing here, let's say a couple things. I made the thumbnail for this stream. I'm going to pull it up and show it to everybody. In part with AI. Let's talk about that. What did I use AI for in this photo? Wait, did I use AI for this? Did I? I'm looking at it and then I'm like, wait a minute. No. I didn't use AI on this one. You know what? I used AI on this other one. Let me show you something that I use AI on. But before that, okay, let's appreciate the thumbnail here. So it has the meme format. Her laying in bed, looking over her shoulder at the partner, male, looking away, and it says her. I bet he is thinking about other women. And then it says him. And, you know, people usually put like something like sports or something like that, you know, and it's like, well, what we have here is, I mean, how would you all describe that in the chat? What are we looking at here? What is that? It's basically a ton of memes, various meme characters, we should say, not the meme formats, but the characters from the memes, all kind of, on top of one another. It was a pretty cool layout. I found someone had already used it on Instagram. I just kind of added some things, you know, took a little creative license with it. Added a bunch of books that are essential texts to theory underground, like Kant's Critique of Pure Reason, Hegel's Phenomenology of Spirit, Das Kapital, Totality and Infinity, Simulation and Simulacra, and Being in Time. Karl Marx's face is on a sexy body of a woman. The sexy body was already in the photo, and I was just putting I was putting philosophers' faces onto things, and I was like, you know what? I kind of put Marx's face there by accident, and then I was like, no, I'm gonna keep it there. I put Slavoj behind some of the stuff that was already here. I cut stuff out and dropped Slavoj behind it just because I wanted to get really creative here. If you kind of pull back, though, and look at this, you'll actually see Lacan's graph of desire. It's kind of over the whole thing. So, you know, I had a lot of fun with that one. That one's going to be, as you can imagine, a sort of recurring thing that I'll use. You want to see an example of me using it and an example of how I use AI in a way that I think is okay, then let's go to, I'm going to pull up my, oh yeah, look at that, it's Nance and Adam. This is not supposed to be Nance and Adam, it's just that's what my browser was currently on. They finished For They Know Not What They Do chapter 3 today. So congratulations to these three champs for getting it done. Very proud of you three. Let's see if I can get it here. We're going to want to switch to something else. Let's go to the Theory Underground homepage. And you see it right here on the very front because I just posted it. So it's on the front of the homepage. Because I made it, like a month ago, I made it so that when you go to Theory Underground, now you actually see just like an activity feed. And I don't know what a person who's got no account with the site sees. I don't think they see a lot of the stuff going on in the private forums. I don't think they see any of the stuff going on in the private forums. Do they see Adam's post here? I don't know. Maybe they have to be friends with Adam first. I haven't done as much experimenting as I would like to. So if anybody has answers to those questions, DM me on Theory Underground and let me know. Which is, by the way, just up here, top right. You see that little, this is where you can send messages. make connections and send messages. Okay, but anyway, so what is this post that I just posted? And it's actually a perfect segue into what I want to talk about. It's called the algorithmic stage. Click on it. Just remember, whenever this website takes a while to load, it's a price you pay for doing shit underground. Okay. Good news, by the way, folks, while I get this set up. One of the biggest stumbling blocks to getting the app underway was solved with the newest update of the software. So they spent the last month and a half struggling with this problem. I was spending $5 a day of donated money to pay for the app, even though I wasn't able to use it. The app is going to be like having Facebook on your phone, except that instead of it recommending you old high school friends and exes and people you don't want to fucking see, it's going to, or family members for that matter, if you're just trying to do theory and philosophy and you're getting distracted, Theory Underground is just a place where if you've been involved with any of the courses here, you'll be able to just have kind of like, oh, you can have your notifications on for that and not have to worry about your other social medias, right? So, I mean, different people will use it in different ways. For me, it's definitely going to be a way to use the way that I'm addicted to the attention economy to make me have to focus on the things I care about more, and also help me build friendships and sort of fellow traveler relationships with people who are doing cool shit. I just read an essay by someone. I'm not going to say the name right now. I might later. But somebody sent me an essay. It was absolute fire. I'm so proud. It was really, really, really cool.
Tight, yeah!
I mean, I read it last night and it kept me up longer. It was very stimulating. And, you know, I was trying to wind down and I was like, oh, I'll just listen to this because, you know, whatever, I'm awake, I can't get to sleep. And then it was such a good essay. I was like, oh my God. But it was like, it wasn't just something that was spat out. It wasn't just something that someone read a couple Wikipedia articles and then like was like, oh, cool, I feel inspired, and then wrote something really quick and then sent to me. We'll talk about that. That's kind of the point of the stream. But no, it was something that required a lot of research and a lot of work before. And so though it was long, it felt short for how much was packed into it. I was just really impressed. And so that was great stuff. But the app is on the way. So right now, the biggest stumbling block with the app is that I do not have an Android phone because my wallet and phone and a couple thousand pesos, not quite, but close, got stolen when I was in Guadalajara trying to take a vacation. And so Anne was there. She's in the chat. She can tell you all about it. Just ask her. But it was not cool. Kind of threw us for a loop. But it was a good lesson. It was a relatively cheap lesson. The things that I lost that are irreplaceable, whatever, that's life. It's less, I mean, I'm just glad we're alive, that we're safe, that we weren't mugged. It wasn't even a pickpocket. I had the phone out beside me. 1 second it was there, next second it wasn't there. I was eating. I shouldn't have had it out. It should have been in my fanny pack. But, you know, these are the lessons you learn once you get comfortable in Mexico. Don't do it. As my friend Raf said, he's an expat in Mexico. He said, look, expats always make this mistake of getting comfortable at some point. You don't do it in low income, like high inequality countries. Just don't do it. You know, if the higher the rate of inequality, the higher the crime, you know, and it's just not good. I hope that whoever took it needed it, is just what I'd say about that. But the takeaway is that not only is my wallet missing and it created a serious problem for about 5 days there, but worse, the phone, which was my piece of shit Android, it was like a Gmoto Power 2022, which is like $150 phone. But because I was like, oh yeah, I'll just build credit with it, and it's a relatively new phone, I still haven't even paid it off yet. So I was like, oh, I'm not even gonna replace it. You know what I mean? I'm down for a bit of a digital cleanse. I just won't even replace it. That was a mistake because I just realized once they told me, oh, we fixed that bug with the app, now you should be able to keep working on it. I can't beta trial jack shit without an Android because I have to have an iPhone and an Android to test the app on 2 different devices. Anne has an iPhone. I don't have my Android. So it's a problem. So I need a phone. And if anybody's got a decent or a great Android laying around, let me know. But that's enough of that. What is the topic of this conversation? I don't want to draw it out too long. I want to get straight to the point. It is, like I said, partially what's up on the screen here, which I was saying is an example of using AI. Okay, so before we get into the AI, what is AI about this photo? Simply this: the baby that is looking into the mirror and the baby's reflection in the mirror, that's AI. AI generated that from a prompt that really shouldn't have generated this. I asked for a realistic looking baby looking in the mirror, but instead of its own reflection, seeing something distorted, scary, and abstract. But instead, it gave me this image without all the extra stuff. So what did I add to it? I took it into Photoshop. I cut the image in half, basically, and then slanted the mirror so it actually has a better angle for this. And then I went in there, I deleted everything around that baby in the mirror and added the other image, the one I was just showing up on the screen. Let's see, pull it back up here, right? Remember from the her, I bet he is thinking about other women, him. See that this is the attention economy, right? That's what this is. This is the attention economy. So I put the attention economy into, it's my way of symbolizing it. It's my attention economy. It might not be yours. Back in the day, it probably would have had a lot more titties or something, but no, this is basically my attention economy right now. And so I put all that in the background of the baby in the mirror, and then also like off to the sides. And so the point is to play off of the mirror face or mirror stage. I don't know. I think people call it the mirror face or the mirror stage. Correct me if I'm wrong. Am I wrong? It's the mirror stage. Who's seen this video from Mikey way back in the day? Has anybody seen this video from Mikey way back in the day before he ever really did anything, before he had a blog, before anything? He had a friend who has video editing skills. Shout out to Christian. I think it was Christian who did this. And basically he had a buddy who was going to help him with the editing. And it was such a process that he never did it again. He just realized, okay, I get a lot more from just writing blog posts. Those help me get better at theory. Videos aren't necessarily helping me get better at theory. But he kind of set up the room here to look like his ideal ego. If you listen to the lectures with me and Mikey, where I'm interviewing him, he's lecturing us, then you know about the fact that he talks about how in the example of the ideal ego, like the perfect example is I think of the teenager's room with all those posters up. So here we've got Tupac, we've got The Cure, we've got Bone Thugs in Harmony, but on the table itself, we've got stacks of fucking dense tomes, some of the most profound and difficult texts from the history of philosophy. And here we have a high school dropout who's into rap and underground shit, lighting up a cigar, gonna drink off probably a beer or some shit, or is that a San Pellegrino? I don't know. But point is so he's about to lecture on Jacques Lacan's The Mirror Stage. This was, before I'd really had a lot of conversations with Mikey, I think I'd already seen this video maybe. And in it, he introduces the idea of Jacques Lacan's The Mirror Stage, which was an essay that Lacan presented early in his career. And the first time he presented it, people didn't get it. He didn't have enough time to fully present it. He felt unappreciated. I think he went off and did his own thing for a while, reworked his theory a lot, came back later. But this gets taken to be one of the most popular pieces by Lacan. I don't know why. I think it's because it's more intuitive than a lot of the other stuff. A lot of the other stuff becomes intuitive once you get the hang of it. But the mirror stage, it's a lot more intuitive because the fact is, yeah, babies between, 8 and 16 months or something like that, start to get a sense of their self. Now, the mirror is not necessary. The mirror stage would work in a hunter-gatherer society that doesn't have the technology to produce a mirror, because there's mirroring in the eyes of the caregiver, in the eyes of other people. Like you get a sense that you have a self through interactions with other people, like over time. You realize that you're not just attached to your mother. You realize you develop a sense of autonomy as you enter language. But that enter into language and the development of a sense for one's ego and the various ways that you identify, the formative moves of identification early on, are all based on illusions. You're not a genius, you're a fucking baby, okay? And it doesn't get much better from there. We get a lot of our original presuppositions from these basic experiences that are not exactly universal. It's not like everybody has a mom. And some people have a primary caregiver who's a dad, and some people are orphans, and so whatever. Different people get varying levels of engagement, but no matter what, it's not like a singular experience. It's not like one day the baby looks in the mirror and goes, "Oh, that's me." This is a term it's a stage. It's not called the mirror moment. It's called the mirror stage, because over a period of time the baby develops a sense for the self. But that sense for the self is a unified sense. You have this idea that you are a whole, and seeing that you have a body and that other people have bodies and that these are distinct and isolated bodies creates this sense of basically fetishization, where you're taking the thing as it appears outside of the context of the process that it belongs to. So you're not thinking about the symbolic relations between the people involved. You're not thinking about all of the extra stuff, okay? So you just kind of, I'm me. Me is me. Simple. When in reality, you're a bunch of competing drives. When in reality, you are a split subject in Lacanian terms. I'm not going to get too deep into it. I feel really dumb right now. I feel very tired. I feel like it's been a long week. But I really want to talk about some things, and I'm using the algorithmic stage as my jumping off point into the material. Just to say that, first of all, you should watch this video for yourself. Second of all, Mikey kind of denounces it later on because it's overly simplistic. Personally, I don't think that being simplistic is like a waste of time or bad or wrong. It's a wonderful video. In fact, I'll play the first 30 seconds of it while I drink some water, and then I'll explain the thesis of this talk and the title. Why is the title, what is it? Something along the lines of, no, you're not a genius. We'll get into that in a second. So let's go.
Hey, welcome to The Dangerous Maybe. I'm Mikey, and today I want to talk about Lacan's essay called The Mirror Stage. It's a particularly influential essay. I would say it's probably the fundamental text of Lacanian psychoanalysis, and contains a lot of original insights into the nature of the human subject, or in this case specifically the human ego, and how the ego itself is not something that's intrinsic in consciousness. Lacan early on in the essay wants to separate himself from Cartesianism. He wants to say that essentially Descartes was full of shit, and the ego is not something that's intrinsic in consciousness from its inception. The ego is something that's formulated over a period of time. He wants to say that it's derived, that the ego isn't immediate. All right, so the full title of this essay is "The Mere Stage as Formative of the I Function as Revealed in Psychoanalytic Experience." But we're
Cool. Yeah, no, you get it. So basically, it ends with the ego is bullshit. It's not. It's in the imaginary. It's somewhat in the symbolic. It's not in the real. And part of Lacanian analysis and also its theory is to really develop for oneself an understanding of the idea of split subjectivity, of not always being the master of one's own house. I say not always. I think some people might say never, but I don't know. I'd like to see people argue about that. But the basic point is like, hey, as a split subject, you don't know why you do things sometimes. And a lot of times we rationalize why we do things, okay? If that's not, even if you think that's wrong, if that's not a part of your critical toolkit, if you don't always think that that's possible, I don't know. I think you just need to spend more time doing theory and thinking and going about the world, watching other people go through life, and also thinking about yourself and thinking, how often am I just telling myself a story that is some self-congratulatory bullshit? Stories that are basically self-congratulatory bullshit, convenient narratives that don't fundamentally change anything. This is what we call ideology. Now, obviously, there's a lot of ways to talk about ideology. Any different thinker is going to have their own theory of ideology. Obviously, from the Zizkian standpoint, we're interested in how jouissance factors into ideology. But I just want to think about the ideology of genius. We'll look at it from a couple different perspectives and why I think it's a problem. And I think a lot of you probably say, "Oh, I'm not a genius." Well, thank God. No, I don't think anybody that I really interact with online is straight up just saying, "I'm a genius." But what we do have is people coming out and saying things like, "Oh, you don't need to read so-and-so. They never said anything original. They're not really worth shit. Oh, you spent a lot of time on that. You don't really need to. You just need to look at this other thing because the thing that you're interested in is just wrong." But they can't really tell you what's going on with that thing. They just make some false equivocations and think that they've washed their hands of the matter. And the subscript of all that is, I'm a genius, right? Oh, I'm a genius. I can tell you, I've got it all figured out. And, you get the same thing with people being like, basically like, "Hey, you should bring me on your channel and review my book and do this and do that with me." And it's like, okay, look, I get being eager and wanting to collaborate, but also like, because everyone does this, because there's a lot of that online, anybody who's been around for a while sees a lot of people who are just flashes in the pan. In the Midwest of the United States, they say a fart in a skillet. It's a really weird term because, okay, but a flash, just they have a fit of inspiration. They try to reach out, but they don't follow up. There's no reliability there. You don't get a sense for anybody's character. And that's partially the nature of the internet, but it's also partially the fact that we're also distracted, divided, conflicted, trying to get the hang of this internet thing. So I don't hold it against anybody. And I realize that this is all a critique of my own self in various ways. And that's going to be very clear in the article that I'm publishing tomorrow. You'll all know it by then. I don't know if I'll be publishing it tomorrow or the day after. It depends on how long it takes to get some feedback. I sent the link to a few people. They've not gotten back to me soon enough. And so people are busy, you know what I mean? But I got to get a couple more people's responses. And so I know a couple of you in the chat probably are interested. And so DM me on Theory Underground if you want to have early access to the piece. And it's not just so you can proofread it. It's already been proofread, more or less. But it's a substantial response. Nance read it. Nance gave me really good feedback on it. But I do want to show it to a couple other people before I publish it, since I've been publishing a lot of shit recently. But what that piece that I'm publishing tomorrow or the day after is about concrete strategies to counteract the worst tendencies of this platform and any other platform that is operative on the internet today. especially ones like starting with Instagram. Getting worse, we go to TikTok. Getting worse, we go to Twitch. Twitter, who knows right now, honestly. Facebook, I don't really know. But as far as like good to bad, I'm not trying to moralize here. I'm talking about what does it do, the medium, concretely to your attention span, your ability to process and work through information and decipher and categorize and reason and judge or deliberate. Like, this is a new frontier in a lot of ways. And the people who are, I've been on the internet since 1995 and it's a new ball game. And the people who are getting involved out, we've got people who grew up on iPads. We've got people who bought iPads 5 years ago from Costco because they're boomers and they resisted Facebook and social media and everything else for a long time, but they finally caved in because they want to have relationships with their family. They finally got hip. They finally learned how to use it at about the exact same time that everybody else got over it and stopped using it. And now they sit on there and they share the same old minion memes. They share the same old, just cringy memes that to anybody from a younger generation, it's like, that's not even a meme. All you're doing is saying something. Like, it's not even a joke. Like, what is this? Like, what's the point of this? But what is that doing to them? And what is it doing to us? And to think, what is it doing to us, first of all, is media theory in its proper sense. Media theory in the tradition of Marshall McLuhan. But to think of it in an expanded sense, where we add critical theory, where we add power analysis, where we add Marx, Arendt, Heidegger to a media theory. All of them in their own ways were philosophers of technology. All of them in their own ways were thinking, how has the human condition changed in a radical new way? And adding that into like a power analysis and thinking, what is the role of capital? What is the role of the state? What is the function of ideology, and how does it interact with these things through propaganda and advertising that is both explicit on the one hand and on the other tacit? Or there's also the kind of like TMI. There's so much information, we don't know how to go through it. And so that's its own form of censorship. It's everything everywhere all at once, which is basically nothing. Right? So all of that is critical media theory. Tomorrow, Ann and I are doing a stream on critical media theory and digital literacy on this channel. So I hope that you will all be able to make it to that. I'm going to actually show you the thumbnail to it because it's fucking sick. But this is the thumbnail. See, this is more AI generated art, but obviously I used Photoshop to change the color scheme, to add the words. So I don't ever just use, say, Midjourney or Night Cafe or any of these other things. I always use Photoshop and mess with it until it satisfies my eye. And it's my own aesthetic sensibilities. I get random critiques from people all the time saying, "Oh, I don't like the shit you do, Dave. I don't like the way it looks. Why do you do it like that?" Because it's good enough. Shut the fuck up. You should be here for the content, not the aesthetic. For fuck's sakes. If you're here for the aesthetic, go to ContraPoints. I'm not just doing aesthetics. But I try to make things look pretty. And that's why if you go to the website, there is a, let's see. There's beautiful, beautiful covers, if I do say so myself, to all of the courses, to all of the forums. They're still loading because, like I said, the site's still slow. But this is currently the covers of, what are you able to see right now? You can see kind of most of it. Hold on, let me fix this. These are the covers. The Being in Time cohort, the Digital Literacy and Critical Media Theory cohort, the Mikey Teaches For They Know Not What They Do cohort, the Private Patron Community Forum, the Professional Managerial Class Consciousness Forum. And then down below, there's also the What is Sex and the Idea of the University. Now, if you look at this from outside, if you haven't registered with the site, I don't even know if you see anything. You might see this one, but I think you have to register to at least see it, or to see it, or to at least, engage in it. So the public/open forums, the FAQ, meme stash, etc. The meme stash never really took off. I just do that stuff for my own timeline on the site. That's pretty much all you can see. But if you register for any of the courses, then you get instantaneous access to the forums. And so that's how that works. As I've been saying for a long time, for a few months now, Theory Underground is a course-gated forum or social media site/app in development. And so that was a side tangent. Let's get back to what this is about. So you'll hear a lot more about digital literacy and critical media theory tomorrow. But for right now, talking about the algorithmic stage is, I think it will help add the context for why this piece is coming out tomorrow about the 3 principles of study as a way of life. That's the name of the piece that I'm publishing tomorrow. You can see it here on the screen right now. 3 principles of study as a way of life. And so basically, I have raised 3 impossible standards that we should, if we are trying to develop ourselves intellectually, if we want to become thinkers, if we want to become theorists, if we want to become philosophers, if we want to cultivate even if you don't want to take it on as a role, even if you don't want to take it on as a way of life, if you're only doing it for a couple of months because you just thought, hey, I should give this a shot, I should cultivate my mind a little bit, I just feel like I have the same old thoughts all the time, I just want to really level up intellectually, well then fucking shit, commit to it, right? You go just idly tarry in the field of biology and be like, this is interesting, and then walk away saying, I got a lot from biology, and then talk about biology for the rest of your life, but you didn't actually commit anything to it. That's what's happening with philosophy and theory today. What I mean by that is what's happening with philosophy and theory today is that people don't think that they have to actually engage with the subject matter because they think, well, the subject matter is just my own thoughts. But this is some more of that fetishization. You're thinking that your own thoughts are your own when your self is extant, when your self is not just its unified whole, but is also only something that makes sense in relation to others, in relation to ideas, in relation to language, and that basically everything is structured by language and law and norms. And a lot of these things you cannot see them in the way, and this is such a fucking tired trope at this point, but it's true. Fishes don't fucking see water, okay? Now, maybe they do. Maybe they do. But you get the point. So, I thought it would be good to do this stream while I'm feeling slow, while I'm feeling dumb, while I'm feeling distracted, because this piece about the 3 principles that I just wrote is a serious call to conscience for other people, but first and foremost, it is a self-criticism of my own last 10 years in the field, which was most of it spent not engaging with subject matter so much as talking. I like to hear the sound of my own voice. I wouldn't have a channel if I didn't. Saying, I just do this because I love to. It has nothing to do with needing the recognition from others. I don't need that. But here I am, participating in the attention economy. Obviously, it matters. So, if the goal of philosophy is to live the examined life, and if doing theory is pure ideology, if you're not trying to live the examined life, then part of that means that you have to do critical media theory. You have to practice, develop digital literacy. And so the course that I'll be talking about tomorrow with Anne in our little launch stream will be a good intro for that. But for today, I just want to talk about the fact that, and here we go with the part that's going to quilt the Mikey piece with the mirror stage. I want to talk about how if it's so formative for a child to develop a sense of a unified self at an early age, then there is something really crazy happening to us today. What is it? What's happening to us today that has never happened in the history of humanity? At an early age, our unified sense of self is finding supreme expression through very, very niche, hyperbolic, self-congratulatory, purely ideological realms of what gets called the internet, which is a state and a state surveillance, data gathering machine that serves capital, and not just so that it can sell you things, but so that it can extract your attention, right? It extracts your attention so that it can try to understand and predict human behaviors at the population level, right? It uses the law of large numbers against us. And we just don't know what the effects are, but we know enough at this point to be able to acknowledge that, well, it's not all good. And I think it's very normal for boomers at this point to usually either avoid acknowledging that there's problems because they only got involved with it pretty recently and they feel like they're hip, and they don't want to be seen as a boomer, for fuck's sakes. Like, boomer's the new N-word to them, right? On the other side, people just have these sort of banal, oh, we're all in our silos, we're all so disconnected, we're all so lonely, distracted, and anxious. It's these damn kids on their smartphones. So we can't really blame the boomers who don't want to go there. And we also can't blame the boomers who do go there because, as you'll see in the chat, if Anne has been, let's check the chat. Has Anne said anything? No, not, hey, Anne, say a thing or two about, what you're looking forward to contributing tomorrow, but I'll touch on it here for the people who don't have eyes on chat. She's a good example of someone who's not a boomer in any way, shape, or form, who grew up with an iPad, who does not think it is healthy to just give a kid unmitigated access to the internet, right? Now, obviously, I think a lot more parents are becoming aware of that. Parenting is a vexed challenge. There is no grand solution to being a parent. But my goal is not to take either the anti-social media attention economy position to an extreme or the other side. And it's not to be some kind of enlightened centrist. My goal is simply that you and I, as individuals who are interested in cultivating our minds, who are interested in developing ourselves as theorists, who are also interested perhaps in education online, get a freer relationship to our technology, not just freer like, oh, it doesn't dominate me, I'm less addicted to it, but also like learning how to use its carrot and stick mechanisms in ways that might help bootstrap us into something better. Is everyone following along so far? I feel like it's been all over the place. I need so let me know if you feel like there's any thread that has not really been tied up here. Has anything been neglected? Are you confused about anything? Is everyone following along? I need to know that you're all there. I appreciate people not just popping off, having side conversations in the chat, but I also do need to know, okay, where are we at? Is everyone good? Is it all making sense so far? I wasn't even sure if I was going to be able to talk when I started the stream. I was like, oh, I am tired. But, hey, you got me going. So we'll, in a moment here, dive in to the article, which will then lay the basis, I believe, for what's to come with this, the 3 principles of study as a way of life piece that will be dropping on the Theory Underground website either tomorrow or the day after. Hey, Lurker just caught up. Fantastic. I got a thumbs up and a fire flame from Nance. Good to see it. Anne says, yep, was on social media starting at the age of 11. My parents, or any parents at the time, couldn't have known how addicting it would become. I feel like I've been a heroin addict since the age of 13. I'm excited to do this course and talk about the issue from a theoretical and practical perspective. Absolutely. Yeah, and I would. It's. I think So if heroin's a downer, I think that maybe meth as the upper is going to be the metaphor I would want to use here, just because it's like it is so addicting. Yes, but it's like speed. It overstimulates you. Last night I couldn't go to sleep, and it's because I should have quit my screen earlier. Right. So what does it say that we are developing either extremely divided senses of selves or extremely cartoonish senses of unified selves compared to anything humans have ever had? Like, what does that say about the prospects for doing philosophy or theory in the 21st century? And what does that have to do with people saying, oh, I just read philosophy books for my first year and a half. I'm ready to publish and everyone should read and engage with my shit. And I've made genuine contributions to a field that I just showed up in. Like, what's the relationship here between people who feel the need to perform mastery and that they have it all figured out and fake it till they make it to overcome their imposter syndrome on the one side, or we've just got a lot of these, they're usually male, strapping young lads, we'll call them, who are gung-ho about theory and philosophy, but they think they've got it all figured out. What is the relationship between that, which has always existed to some degree, and the way it currently exists as one tries to get into the field of philosophy and theory? Basically, I'm saying that on the side of academia, as well as on the side of the attention economy, some people have a foot in both worlds. The incentives of the algorithm are to put out content. Content for what? What does that do for you as an ego? And here's where we're going to get into the article. I think that it is the sort of background for what's going on. It's relatively short. I published it on Theory Underground today. But back in September of last year, I published it on my old Substack. Okay. And so it's called, I wrote this like right before proposing to Anne, quitting my job at Amazon, taking the savings and going to Europe, and then coming back and then trying to get enough money again so that we could move to Mexico so that we could save money so that I could launch Theory Underground. What is the point of all that? Well, the algorithmic stage is sort of like this current line of flight I'm on, this current trajectory that I'm on is just a new iteration or version of something that I've tried a lot of other times over the last 10 years. And that this current version, it kind of springs from this piece, to be honest. It goes, subjectivization in the age of the attention economy. What would freedom from the web entail? Not a complete renunciation of the internet, nor of its culture and connections. Freedom is... Can you all see that shit? I don't think you can see that. Hold on, let me fix this. Is this going to work? It just went away. Hold on. Well, that fucked it up. Well, it's back. If it's too small, I'm sorry. So what would freedom from the web entail? Not just leaving it, right? Like, how do you have a presence on or connections within online platforms is the question, right? I said freedom is only relative. Absolute freedom is just death. So what I mean by freedom from the web in this case would not mean having no presence on or connections within online platforms. Being absent from the internet is only a partial kind of freedom that would cause unfreedom in other areas, such as being able to advance your creative projects, getting anything done with others today pretty much necessitates using the internet. Absolute freedom from the web would be like absolute freedom from society. You'll freely get lonely and go mad in the mountains of your hermitage. But you'll also go mad using the internet all the time. Too much time spent socializing online, in quotes, likewise results in loneliness. Insofar as genuine being with others is possible online, solicitude. Insofar as being with others is possible online, solicitude. It is compromised at the point that you lose touch with genuine being with oneself, solitude, right? Solicitude with others, solitude with self. If it's genuine, right, then those two things are in a happy relationship with one another, which is why, I think I get to this, but yeah, chapter 2 of Waypoint, I do a whole chapter on the virtuous circle between solicitude and solitude. That's kind of my first foray into critical media theory, was that piece of writing. If all your time and energy is habitually turned towards the attention economy, you don't have any for fusing time energy into routine effort sacrificed towards deep work. Okay, now this is especially small, so I will read it, and you'll just have to bear with me. The kinds of activities that demand deep work, 3 to 6 hour blocks of time spent focusing on immersive problems, suffer the most. This is a quote from a book called Deep Work. Because the internet is a this is not a quote from... Now I'm confused. Well, it's a good thing I'm reading this with you all and that you are also patient with me, because this is not a quote from Deep Work. I cite Deep Work, but this should not be appearing in smaller type like this. This is a formatting error. I thought, oh, this is a quote. It's not a quote. This is still me writing. Because obviously Cal Newport, the author of Deep Work, is not going to say anything about state spying or capital valorizing apparatuses. So anyway, I'll just start the paragraph over again. The kinds of activities that demand deep work, 3 to 6 hour blocks of time spent focusing on immersive problems, suffer the most. Because the internet is a state spying and capital valorizing apparatus, its interests are not exactly always our own. An attention economy is better thought of as a war for and against attention itself. Not for your attention, but for statistical attention. To say we are just numbers to these machines does not go far enough. And by the way, the whole thing about it being state spying, that should be obvious, but for anybody who all of their news is just Fed posting, then you should really read Yasha Levine's Surveillance Valley. I'll just leave it at that. The primary weapon of attention warfare is not the smartphone in our hands or pockets, which is only one nodal point in a larger circuit. The primary weapon is seduction itself, of which the smartphone is only one demonstration of how sophisticated the tools of this warfare have become. Psychology and social science serving big data have taken seduction to a new level in the last 2 decades that will be remembered and researched for the rest of historical time. We absolutely cannot fathom the implications of this current situation, but we feel its effects in the form of perpetual distraction. There are, of course, other side effects, which are good for the burgeoning pharmaceutical companies that provide lifetime subscriptions to everything from depression, anxiety, and ADHD for increasing numbers of humans, including, this has to be mentioned, children who are only a few years old. This is nothing new. Surely you've had these thoughts. We've all had these thoughts. The implications and ramifications of these forms of technology on mental health will become commonplace in any circle where they have not already. What I can't stop thinking about though, if seeing oneself reflected in mirrors and the reactions of others in the formative experience of the ego, Lacan's mirror stage, which was already a necessary illusion that takes images for the thing itself, or perhaps we should say, as a unified thing in and for itself, then today there is an algorithmic stage in subjective development. The algorithmic stage instills a fundamental understanding of the subject's precognitive level, that one cannot merely gain a unified sense of self through identification with the image in the mirror, nor the gaze and reactions of the concrete other in real time. Real time, in this sense, gets at the fact that in the real world, there is a time and place for everything. We cannot have recognition on demand. right? Sometimes mommy's got to go to work. Sometimes daddy is going to ignore you when you're trying to get like recognition because you drew a picture or whatever. There's these classic examples of like kids feel like, oh, I better go do something. Like, I don't know, weird. I can't always get attention. I can't always get reactions, right? Well, that's changed in this quote unquote space, this placeless space online. We cannot have recognition on demand. We can have attention on demand, but we cannot have recognition on demand. And here I use the example. Sometimes mommy has to go do other things. The internet persists on the fantasy of recognition on demand. It purports to stand in for concrete others who are not always immediately available or interested. To say that an industry simulates recognition is not to say that there is in fact no recognition to be gained through that industry. For example, genuine recognition may still be possible in today's university, even though it has become increasingly simulated. Likewise, recognition and genuine connections are possible online, but the deck is stacked against you, especially for the reasons having to do with the virtuous circle between solitude and solicitude in Chapter 2 of Waypoint, which I already mentioned, which is why I read it fast. Genuine recognition cannot come from others who don't understand what it is you have to offer or have achieved. Likewise, genuine care and concern tend to require a more intimate understanding of the other than is made possible by platforms and mediums. I think the footnote here says that, yes, I use the word mediums instead of media. I understand it's dictionary incorrect in a sense, but like the plural of medium is media. But everyone thinks when you say media, they think of Fox News, CNN, New York Times. So I don't care. I'm going to say mediums, just to be clear. People have learned to think about the media, but they've not learned to think about mediums. That's why I think that we have to assert the difference there and actually just use the word in a way that was or is incorrect, but hopefully will not be in the future. We're almost done with this piece, okay? And then we'll bring it back around to something that happened earlier today, something that's kind of been occurring over the last few weeks, something that has caused some friction and some disagreements and hopefully not hurt feelings, but at least some disagreements and friction. And it's just the way things are, and that's how we learn and grow. But this all ultimately builds up to something. It's giving us, I believe, the context for what's to come. So I'll reread that last sentence. Likewise, genuine care and concern tend to require a more intimate understanding of the other than is made possible by platforms and mediums. Let's briefly consider the ways that platforms as mediums get in the way of genuine recognition and care, as in solicitude. We will do this by way of return to the concept of the algorithmic stage. The algorithmic stage thwarts the mirror stage by taking it to another level. Rather than finding a sense of identity in the world of real time, where everything has its time and place, the ego develops a dependence not on images in real time, but rather on instantaneously granted simulations. These satisfy one's desire for solicitude and selfhood in the same way that soda quenches thirst, as in more satisfying in the short term, but less so in the longer term. Most damaging of all, the algorithmic stage habituates in the subject, in you, in me, a sense that not being seen results in loss of touch with others. Not being seen results in a feeling of loss of touch with others. If there was a quiz on this, honestly, I should probably set up a quiz on this shit. Like there's going to be like a space on this website where it's like, I don't even want to have conversations with people who do not come to the basic, like you gotta think about that. Do you not feel it? Like I only realized in conversation with someone 2 weeks ago, like how much I've moved from being like, oh no, I'm not affected by this attention economy bullshit, to being like, no, at a very naive level, I think I just actually believe that not being seen results in the loss of touch with others. When in fact, like you could be not seen for years, but then write a very thoughtful letter and have a better relationship with somebody, or you have like an 8-hour conversation with them after 5 years of not being seen, and you have a better relationship with them than you would have posting all your everything that comes to mind on Facebook all the time, right? But we have this sense that we need to put content out, not just for our careers, not just so that we can like network in the terms of social capital. We also have like this sense that we are disappearing if we are not appearing. This sense that not being seen results in loss of touch with others. You have to routinely keep yourself afresh in the eyes of the algorithm so as to get the chance to exist, being seen and remembered for others. Doing so puts contradictory demands on the subject, where you are damned if you do or do not play by the algorithmically determined community norms. Algorithms are essentially pragmatists, seeking only what works. They are able to find answers to problems that were not even discovered yet by trial and error aggregated to a level that defies comprehension. They prey upon our desire, and through this attention, in a way that bypasses our higher order levels of rationality by hijacking ancient brain processes and predictable biopsychosocial tendencies. That's a mouthful, right? What is that saying? Algorithms are smarter than people in some ways, and one of those is just manipulating desire. There's a reason this shit can be so addicting. People are like, oh, well, you know what? Just do class politics. We don't need culture war. But then they fucking consume and consume and consume culture war fucking content. They do. They do. I do as well. I'm not above it. And it's like, yeah, we can say what we actually think is ideal and what we think everyone should do, but we're not actually doing it. And why? Somehow I think drive might factor in. Right? Some kind of jouissance, maybe. I don't know. Perhaps. That's something we will be exploring in the future. But then to say this shit preys upon our desire confounds things if we're thinking in terms of Lacanian desire. I wasn't thinking of Lacanian desire when I wrote that. I really should go back and edit it. These things prey upon drive and desire in different competing ways. Okay, the whole thing about algorithms being pragmatists, I want that to actually click for you all. And so I'm going to step away for a moment and just straight up play it. For real, I think that we have the time. If you are feeling like, oh, I was hoping the stream would be over soon so I can go to bed, pause it, go to bed, come back to it when you're feeling like it. This fear of missing out thing, It's a disease. Don't take it too seriously, okay? You're not going to miss out if you watch it later.
On the internet, the algorithms are all around you. You are watching this video because an algorithm brought it to you, among others, to click, which you did, and the algorithm took note. When you open the tweetbook, the algorithm decides what you see. When you search through your photos, the algorithm does the finding, maybe even makes a little movie for you. When you buy something, the algorithm sets the price, and the algorithm is at your bank watching transactions for fraud. The stock market is full of algorithms trading with algorithms. Given this, you might want to know how these little algorithmic bots shaping your world work, especially when they don't. In ye olden days, humans built algorithmic bots by giving them instructions the humans could explain. If this, then that. But many problems are just too big and hard for a human to write simple instructions for. There's a gazillion financial transactions a second. Which ones are fraudulent? There's octillion videos on NetMeTube. Which 8 should the user see as recommendations? Which shouldn't be allowed on the site at all? For this airline seat, what is the maximum price this user will pay right now? Algorithmic bots give answers to these questions. Not perfect answers, but much better than a human could do. But how these bots bots work exactly more and more no one knows, not even the humans who built them, or built them, as we will see. Now, companies that use these bots don't want to talk about how they work because the bots are valuable employees, very, very valuable, and how their brains are built is a fiercely guarded trade secret. Right now, the cutting edge is most likely very I hope you like linear algebra, but what the current hotness is on any particular site and how the bots work is a bit I don't know, and always will be. So let's talk about one of the more quaint but understandable ways bots can be built without understanding how their brains work. Say you want a bot that can recognize what is in a picture. Is it a B or is it a 3? It's easy for humans, even little humans, but it's impossible to just tell a bot in bot language how to do it, because really we just know that's a B and that's a 3. We can say in words what makes them different, but bots don't understand words, and it's the wiring in our brains that makes it happen anyway. While an individual neuron may be understood and clusters of neurons' general purpose vaguely grasped, the whole is beyond. Nonetheless, it works. So to get a bot that can do this sorting, you don't build it yourself. You build a bot that builds bots and a bot that teaches bots. These bots' brains are simpler, something a smart human programmer can make. The builder bot builds bots, though it's not very good at it. At first, it connects the wires and modules in the bot brains almost at random. This leads to some very special student bots sent to TeacherBot to teach. Of course, TeacherBot can't tell a B from a 3 either. If the human could build TeacherBot to do that, well then, problem solved. Instead, the human gives TeacherBot a bunch of B photos and 3 photos and an answer key to which is what. TeacherBot can't teach, but TeacherBot can test. The adorkable student bots stick out their tongues, try very hard, but they are bad at what they do. Very, very bad. And it's not their fault really. They were built that way. Grades in hand, the student bots take a march of shame back to BuilderBot. Those that did best are put to one side, the others recycled. BuilderBot still isn't good at building bots, but now it takes those left and makes copies with changes and new combinations. Back to school they go. TeacherBot teaches, tests again, and BuilderBot builds again. And again, and again. Now, a builder that builds at random and a teacher that doesn't teach, just tests, and students who can't learn, they just are what they are, in theory shouldn't work, but in practice it does. Partly because in every iteration, BuilderBot's slaughterhouse keeps the best and discards the rest, and partly because TeacherBot isn't overseeing an old-timey one-room schoolhouse with a dozen students, but an infinite warehouse with thousands of students. The test isn't 10 questions, but a million questions. And how many times does the test, build, test, loop, repeat? As many as necessary. At first, students that survive are just lucky, but by combining enough lucky bots and keeping only what works, and randomly messing around with new copies of that, eventually a student bot emerges that isn't lucky, that can perhaps barely tell B's from 3s. As this bot is copied and changed, slowly the average test score rises, and thus the grade needed to survive the next round gets higher and higher. Keep this up, and eventually from the infinite warehouse slaughterhouse, a student bot will emerge who can tell a B from a 3 in a photo it's never seen before pretty well. But how the student bot does this, neither the teacher bot, nor the builder bot, nor the human overseer can understand, nor the student bot itself. After keeping so many useful random changes, the wiring in its head is incredibly complicated, and while an individual line of code may be understood and clusters of code's general purpose vaguely grasped, the whole is beyond. Nonetheless, it works. But this is frustrating, especially as the student bot is very good at exactly only the kinds of questions it's been taught to. It's great with photos, but useless with videos, or baffled if the photos are upside down, or things that are obviously not B's it's confident are. Since TeacherBot can't teach, all the human overseer can do is give it more questions to make the test even longer, to include the kinds of questions the best bots get wrong. This is important to understand. It's a reason why companies are obsessed with collecting data. More data equals longer tests equals better bots. So when you get the "Are you human?" test on a website, you are not only proving that you are human, hopefully, but you are also helping to build the test to make bots that can read or count or tell lakes from mountains or horses from humans. Seeing lots of questions about driving lately? What could that be building a test for? Now, figuring out what's in a photo or on a sign or filtering videos requires humans to make correct enough tests, but there is another kind of test that makes itself. Tests on the humans. For example, say entirely hypothetical NetMeTube wanted users to keep watching as long as possible. Well, how long a user stays on the site is easy to measure, so TeacherBot gives each student bot a bunch of NetMeTube users to oversee. The student bots watch what their user watches, looks at their files, and do their best to pick the videos that keep the user on the site. The longer the average, the higher their test score. Build, test, repeat. A million cycles later, there's a student bot who's pretty good at keeping the users watching, at least compared to what a human could build. But when people ask how does the NetMeTube algorithm select videos, once again, there isn't a great...
So you're gonna Wang Chef Spurry says, I hate these videos. They never get to the point. No. maybe Wink Chef, Wink. Sorry, I can't even say your name. Maybe you're just addicted to getting everything in sound bites and having it like instantaneously, right? Like that's possible, is it not? Right? Everybody wants everything so quick. Everybody wants the hot take and the fucking, oh, I got the little thing so I can just repeat it. It's like follow a chain of reasoning, and it's not good enough to have a summary. You actually want to understand how things work, right? Kind of gets to the bigger point that we'll be getting to. So maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. But you're right. It does feel tedious. But it feels tedious because this, how do we say this? CGT gray, CGP gray is condensing so much effort into a relatively short video. It's only 8 minutes and 54 seconds. I sped it up for part of it. Sorry, everybody. And I'm going to let it finish at 1.25 speed. You can always go back over it. I think you should. We live in an algorithmic, a curated world. We're in ways we do not even understand, caught up in it. But since I just gave Wank some shit, I'll also say, Wank asked a really good question. Is this brainwashing? And, you know, I don't know. That's a great question. I guess we would have to define our terms. How do we define brainwashing? But brainwashing is something that, you know, like a powerful entity does to another, like less power, subjugated entity, to make that subjugated, that person feel or believe things that aren't true. And I guess there's probably ways of doing it that are less overt, right? Like you don't have to torture a person. Like I almost used an example that would have been a spoiler. But you don't have to, like, I don't know. There's various ways of brainwashing. Like, I think people get the idea that, like, they're, you know, oh, we can hypnotize people through television sets, like, is a kind of a cartoon version of brainwashing. But no, at a much deeper level, brainwashing is something done to some people. How often are masses brainwashed? I guess we can think about, like, the media of imperialism and or just nationalist propaganda and the ways that totalitarian countries, especially fascist ones, utilize propaganda in the 20th century to basically brainwash an entire population. So yeah, it does happen, but we have to define our terms, and I think that's a sticky issue, and it's a really good question that would, that would merit like a full-on essay, I think, because there's not a singular definition. You can look it up in the dictionary. There is one in the dictionary, but it's not going to be sufficient for figuring out what this is in terms of that. But the internet was invented by anti-communists, right? It was invented as a way to combat others in the information war. It's a very sophisticated but new technology, and we don't know what is known by those who built it, but it has a lot to do with the CIA. This is not a neutral platform. People who are like uber revolutionary online. I like the meme that shows like that's probably like an FBI person behind the screen, because uber revolutionaries online, if they're not conscious about the fact that they're on a CIA platform or like infrastructure, then I just don't really trust where they're coming from, right? So anyway, I don't know if it's brainwashing, but it's definitely a new game. Not just a new game in terms of for theories of social change, it poses a serious problem, but also understanding oneself, right? Because if we have been brainwashed in some way, or if perhaps what's occurring is worse than brainwashing because there's not actually someone in control. Because that's kind of the other thing implicated by the idea of brainwashing. Someone else is in control. Oh, well, wouldn't that be nice? But what if there's not, right? What if the CIA doesn't have control, right? So, yeah, the idea of millions of these bots evolving faster than anything we can imagine. Like, to what? To get us to click on the videos and to stay on them? It's just a whole nother ballgame. So when we're thinking about this stage in the development of a subjectivity, which is to say you, me, anyone we know. Fuck, I mean, it is to me one of the most important problems, and that to think any other human problems outside of this problem is to think those problems outside of the most important context of our day.
Be good at keeping the users watching, at least compared to what a human could build. But when people ask how does the NetMeTube algorithm select videos, once again, there isn't a great answer other than pointing to the bot and the user data it had access to, and most vitally, how the human overseers direct TeacherBot to score the test. That's what the bot is trying to be good at to survive, but what the bot is thinking, or how it thinks it, is not really knowable. All that's knowable is this student bot gets to be the algorithm because it's 0.1% better than the previous bot at the test the humans designed. So everywhere on the internet behind the scenes there are tests to increase user interaction, or set prices just right to maximize revenue, or pick the posts from all your friends you'll like the most, or articles people will share the most, or whatever. If it's testable, it's teachable. Well, teachable. And a student bot will graduate from the warehouse to be the algorithm of its domain, at least for a little while. We're used to the idea that the tools we use, even if we don't understand them, someone does. But with our machines that learn, we are increasingly in a position where we use tools or are used by tools that no one, not even their creators, understand. We can only hope to guide them with the tests we make. And we need to get comfortable with that, as our algorithmic bot buddies are all around and not going anywhere. Okay, the bots are watching. You know what's coming. This is where I need to ask you to like, comment, and subscribe, and bell me.
Yeah, do
Share on
it.
the tweet book.
Make sure to like,
The
comment, and
algorithm is
subscribe.
watching. It won't show people the video
Seriously.
unless you do this.
If you don't do it, no one's going to like this. Come on. You will never get recommended this shit again if you don't do it. Come on. And then he just kind of milks it a little bit to be funny. But he's right? If you don't smash the like button, you won't necessarily see it again. If you push the downvote button on something, you're more likely to see it again than one of my videos if you don't click the like button. Okay? So digital literacy means, in part, survival tactics. Which in part does not just mean like learning how to go and touch grass and go do other things that aren't online. That'd be part of it, obviously. It doesn't just mean if you're catching up with an old friend, don't have the phone on the table while talking to them. Studies repeatedly show that the quality of the conversation goes down significantly. How do they measure quality and such? I don't know. But the point is like people are, their attention spans are lowered the moment they, if I put my phone on the table and Solitaire right there in the chat, he's going to feel like this impulse to pull out his phone, right? If you go into an elevator, everybody wants to be on their phone to escape the awkwardness. If you try to escape every little awkward or sort of friction dynamic with other people through your phone, then you're never really going to be with other people. And if you don't really learn how to be with other people, you don't really learn how to be with yourself. And you're definitely not going to learn how to be with yourself when you're always going to your phone. So we are all junkies, right? We are all junkies. I believe it says that in the description of this video. We're all junkies. We're addicted to some bullshit. But this video is not about how you should quit or why you should quit. There are definitely arguments for that, but I don't think it's time to restructure my subjectivity in some serious way. A lot of the things that I'm doing are currently things that I enjoy doing. I don't want to stop. And I just want to go about it a bit more mindfully, more deliberately, and more importantly, learn little tricks that help me game the system so that it teaches me the things that I'm more interested in learning instead of just teaching me drama porn, which is what most of YouTube is going to do, right? So there's all kinds of really cool areas of YouTube that aren't just drama porn. And I try to avoid that kind of content with every fiber of my being. As much fun as it would be, I know it would be, I do avoid it most of the time. Like, I think the most popular video I had with Theory Plebe for like 2 years was the one where I did like a stream critiquing Mexi and Vosh after they had like a sort of conversation turned debate. But it was dramatic, and I just don't want their audiences. I just don't want to engage with them. Really, I don't anymore. I did at the time. I don't now. And why? It's because I think that I can salvage together myself like some kind of a soul, which is, I'm using that in the more classical sense, not in this like religious sense. I'm using it in the sense of like cultivating my higher capacities in a way that sets me up to have a rich life, to where if I was put in prison at the age of 60, I could spend my last 30 years having a really good time because of all of the cultivation I did before that point, right? I would write my best books. I would have fantastic conversations. I would have fantastic phone calls. It would be all right. It would be all right. Philosophy is a way of investing effort when you're young so that when you're old, you won't be boring, dull, and ignorant. You will be sharp and wise. It's not something that should come fast. It's not something that is going to unlock your Ubermensch abilities in your 20s or 30s. And if you fucking think that it already has, you're high on your own farts. You're drunk on the attention economy. You've been consuming content, but you haven't been reading and writing, which are the first two steps of thinking. Now people are going to say, oh, well, that's so Eurocentric and phallogocentric, and it's problematic because, okay, shut the fuck up. Oh, we're post-literate now. Oh, we're a verbal community now. We're part of the global villages now. Okay, shut up. I just don't buy it. I don't buy it. I want to have a better life. And my experience of not really reading and being functionally illiterate before the age of 23, working in the workforce prior to the age of 23 for nearly a decade as a functional illiterate, showed me that actually getting into ideas and learning things filled something that had been not a void, because that void got filled with other bullshit, right? So it's not that void gets filled with other bullshit, and yeah, concepts and language, and there's a lot of bullshit there as well. But reading and writing were the first things slaves wanted for a reason. Okay, not just so that they could beat the master at the master's own game or whatever. You should read Frederick Douglass. You should read Sherman Alexie. You should read Michael McWhorter. These are three examples of people whose experiences with coming into language and learning how to read on their own with pretty much no community support, because on the one case, or in two of their cases, the black community where they were growing up wasn't supportive of it. Oh, that's just white people shit. And on the other side, a Native American reservation. Oh, it's just white people shit. What are you doing? It's not. It's not just some white people shit. Oh, it's overrepresented, and that's a class thing. But reading it's not just empowering because it gives you power over others or some bullshit like that. It's not just so you can play rhetorical games with other people. It's so that you can learn the words for the more important things than just the functional shit that your fucking boss wanted you to learn in school. Right? There's nothing more pathetic and stupid and backwards than the anti-literate turn in pseudo-populist fucking grandstanding that we see online today. There's nothing more pathetic and like, it's just like, what? They just want to make slaves out of all of us. They want to take away our ability to think about ourselves and the world and to develop our understanding of things in a way that could ever lay the basis for any kind of real change. Currently, those things do not exist. Currently, none of these fucking idea hustlers on YouTube are selling you something that gives a genuine way forward into the future. If you fucking are all doped up on hope because somebody's selling you some bullshit, I hate to break it to you, but that's what it is. And if there's a little bit of truth to it, fantastic. And if it really is working out for you, fucking great. And if you're watching, like, I don't know, some video essays that are like really getting you to think about philosophy and theory, and that's how you came to this. Awesome. I'm glad the algorithm brought you here, but I don't make content that is meant to milk your attention and keep you here, keep you here, keep you here, keep you here every second of the time, confirming your biases. I don't assume a predetermined demographic in the attention economy, a predetermined demographic defined along certain kinds of criteria. No, I don't. I do not assume a kind of addict in the attention economy who's looking for anything other than their own self-overcoming. And that's because I'm looking for people like me who are like, no, but I want to actually read for myself, not just watch influencers. I want to learn how to write again because I never learned how to write for myself. I only learned how to write for teachers. I want to use writing as a way of radical transformation, right? Not just so that we can change the world around us and change others or manipulate others or use rhetoric against others. It's not functional. It's not instrumentalized in this sense. No, it's so that you can have a life, okay? And if you're watching this, you're like, well, fuck you, Dave. I don't read, I don't write, and I'm doing just fine. Cool. There are billions of videos on the internet for you, hundreds of millions of channels on YouTube for you. Go have fun. But I'm basically preaching to a choir here. That's an expression of speech in American English used to say, I am speaking to an audience of the already convinced. I'm not trying to convince the people who think that reading and writing is pointless. You can't, what are you going to do? Argue about math with someone who can't do math? It doesn't make sense. But my point is to add a little inspiration, I hope, and spark a light of critical self-conscience for people who constantly are being sucked back into all the other bullshit. Nothing I've done since I launched with Theory Underground has been done in a way that is geared to grab a hold of the attention of a predetermined audience demographic and then hold that attention in a way that would maximize my reach. People who think they already have it all figured out and they know exactly what they need to do, that's what they're doing. I don't already have it all figured out. I'm trying to learn how to think, and I'm trying to do it with other people who are looking for something more real, which is why I don't get a lot of people on this channel, but the people I do get go, I was like all over this stuff and I was really into TheoryTube or BreadTube or any of these other things, and then I came to your shit and I felt like, oh, well, that's the meat and potatoes. I found it. This is the real shit. Okay, that 5 likes from people who think that means a lot more than 100,000 likes from people who are just fucking junkies scrolling and just loving to have their biases confirmed. Okay, we're not going to confirm your biases here except for this one assumption, the assumption that having those biases questioned and challenged and having your presuppositional frameworks thoroughly brought into awareness, because they're not something that you can just see, through running through other great thinkers and texts from the history of ideas from across the span of time and seeing how they still relate to our lives. The assumption being, that's worth it. That's inherently worth it. Fuck everyone else. Fuck everything else. If you fucking want to, go for it. But me, I know what I'm here to do. And Theory Underground is doing something no one else is doing. I'm sorry, it doesn't exist. It's something new. And I'm excited for the fucking ragtag team of bandits, burnouts, autodidacts, and working class intellectuals, and PMC renegades who are or renegade PMCs, as I say, who are here for it. I'm here for the people who are here for it. But people who are like, oh no, I don't need to read. Hey, can you tell me what you think about my tweet? I get this shit from people. Hey, can you read my thesis? Hey, can you read my tweet? Hey, can you read my book? You're fucking 19. Why did you write a book? Have you been a student yet? Have you ever asked someone to critique your shit yet? You're asking me to read your shit, but you're not asking me to critique your shit. You just want my applause, but you don't want critique. I've been getting critique for 10 years and I'm signing up for another 20. And people are like, oh no, I just want to fucking have my ego stroked. No, it's not going to work. Look, we all need validation. We need to know that we're making concrete steps forward. Absolutely. But this whole like, oh, will you let me know about my tweet? Like, what do you think about it? And I got a message like that today. And the person started the message by saying, please tear into it. Grade my idea like a capricious, jaded jerk, he said. He said, grade my idea like a capricious, jaded jerk. So first of all, that's high praise. Really, it's a backhanded compliment of sorts, isn't it? The idea that he came to me for the kind of criticism that will come across like a capricious, jaded jerk. Okay, fair enough. I could see how someone might project and think that that is the case. But also, I think he's being sarcastic, and he's saying, look, just don't go easy on me. Tear into me on this tweet. So I look at the tweet, I look at the whole thread. It's a whole like, it's the kind of shit that people who are in their first philosophy class say when they're drinking in a circle at the restaurant or the bar or the whatever, like later on at the house party. Like if they get together with a study group and instead of actually studying and instead of actually getting into the text, they all have a beer in hand and they're feeling a little tipsy and they're all chatterboxes and they're like, oh yeah, man, neurons and physics and and they're talking about shit that they haven't studied. But they're trying to apply it to philosophy, which is its own domain and is not compartmentalized or servant to any of these other more specialized sciences. And these outcomes or concepts or tools from rarefied niche sciences are then being applied to literally the rest of being. And grand deductions and simplifications are being made about regular, like, human shit that it's like you have never actually challenged your own presuppositions by following someone else along in a chain of reasoning that has withstood the tests of time for more than a century, which means that you are in the fucking the bus, you are on public transportation trying to fucking write a dissertation with someone who's trying to get to work. It doesn't make sense. It's just, this is not the place for that, right? But of course, high on our own farts, as I said. We feel like here on the bus, on Twitter, we've really, oh yeah, this is fucking profound. I finally found a way to say the thing that I've been trying to say. Yeah, the thing that you're trying to say that like, and pick one of any of the 40 most important thinkers from the history of philosophy would decimate with the first fucking 3 sentences of one of the great texts. And oh no, I don't need that though. What, you think I have to study all of physics to talk about being in the world? No, I think you have to study philosophy if you really want to pose as a philosopher online. Woo. What a fucking, oh, but it's just on Twitter. This is all just words connecting. This is all just memes anyway. I don't even know if I'm real. Yeah. But I know that you're drunk. I know that you're fucking methed out on attention economy fucking bullshit. I know that we are algorithmically incentivized to fucking pop off and think that every little thing that occurs to us that has literally come out the mouths of every freshman before you is fucking original and sacrosanct. But guess what? In a college or university setting, this is the thing that the working class misses out on. You're going to at least sometimes run into someone who challenges that shit and just shuts that shit down. So, in the context of the conversation earlier where the person asked me to grade their idea like a capricious, jaded jerk, I started, I read it and I was like, well, I don't want to be mean or anything, but like also, I don't know. And then this person was like, I think that it helped me understand your time energy idea. Like, I understand your concept now. And I was like, no way in the world should that be helping you, because it has nothing to do with what I've been doing. But the thing is like, I wrote a book a couple years ago. This shit has been out. I didn't write it to the broad public. I didn't write it to, a rarefied academic audience. I wrote it to people who are kind of between those two worlds, who are trying to have a conversation with me. And so people who think that they're my fellow travelers who haven't fucking read it, it's like, if you can't take the time to read something that took me a decade to put together, how do you think you are on the path I am? Like, how are we going to be in dialogue? If you read my book, you give it thoughtful response, and you can really tarry with the concepts and show me that you've thought about it, now we're talking. And you want to disagree or you want to run your own ideas past me, now we're talking. But instead it's just like, nope, we see each other on Twitter, and then, oh, I understand your ideas now. You haven't even really watched any of my shit, first of all. Second of all, you haven't even read shit. And look, it's not personal, but you want me to grade your idea like a capricious, jaded jerk. I'm gonna grade your mode as a capricious, jaded jerk, not your idea. Your idea is whatever. It's worth taking seriously. In a classroom, you're reading some real philosophy for the first time. You're trying to work it out. You use some, whatever comes to mind. You're working it out. If you have a good professor, you're gonna get some honest feedback. That's the privilege of a real education, getting some honest feedback from somebody. But to avoid the feedback about your mode itself is something else. I didn't start flaming this person. I didn't start tearing into this person. I didn't start saying, oh, you're a stupid piece of shit. You're so pretentious and pompous and think you got it all figured out. Like, look, I see myself in any person like this because I'm still that person. I'm trying to get my head out of my own ass, probably sticking it up further every minute that I talk on this stream. I understand. I am self-critical in this way, but I do believe that by writing something like this piece, which I talked about earlier, the 3 principles of study as a way of life. The point of a piece like this is to hold myself to a higher standard. And anybody who's trying to be like, oh, I'm a fellow traveler of Dave's. Okay, well, oh yeah, I'm affiliated with Theory Underground. Okay, that doesn't mean we just hang out and chitter chat. Okay? I'm sorry, but like the world's burning and people are like, oh, we don't have time for theory. First of all, if we really don't have time, then we don't have time to act like we don't have time. That's first. Second of all, you can't change shit if you don't understand it first, right? But there are things that we can do, concrete material changes that we can do. But the fact that there's problems in the world is not a reason to not develop ourselves and try to not understand, and to excuse ourselves from actually having to understand things. The thing was, I was like, this person, so I didn't tear into this person. The person said, because I see myself in that person. That's what I'm saying. I see myself in that person. And so I'm just like, and maybe that's the projection. I understand. There is like that. I'm aware. But, I am sympathetic to anybody who's got ADHD, who just really can't sit and turn pages, who has, it's like for me doing mathematics. Oh my God. Are you kidding me? It is like pulling nails, because if it's not something I'm going to be using and having recourse to, like with philosophy, I'm always thinking about it. I can always go, I've always got recourse to it, so it stays fresh with me and it's perfect. No, but if it's something that's outside of what I take to be the most fundamental problems of existence that concern me and that I think need to be prioritized, then I'm like, I don't fucking care about this shit, right? So I've major sympathies for anybody who just feels like, I can't do this. This is too hard. I totally get it. But I also, because I am that person and I'm trying to get better, when people are like, oh yeah, I'm on this wavelength with you and I'm also trying to get, no, they're like, oh, I'm on this wavelength with you. Okay, cool. Are you trying to get better? Or are you just like, you've got it all figured out, right? That's the difference between like, read my shit, I've nailed it, versus I'm working on shit. This is how I've been working on shit. This is the difference, and there will be a conversation on this channel soon. This is the difference between process and position. People are like, oh, I've honed my position. I've got the fucking most based takes ever. Oh yeah, you got a great position? What's your process? Process matters more than positions. Okay. Unless you have it all figured out. But if you have it all figured out, I'd like to know what your process was, right? So what actually made the conversation have some friction though was like, I was just like, okay, So this person was like, I think I figured out your idea now and blah, 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 blah. We should have a live stream about it. When people want to have live streams about time energy, I go, yeah, hell yeah, I want to have a conversation about like my most fundamental concept. Like all my thinking is always kind of in some way in service to the development of time energy theory. Multiple chapters in Waypoint are explicitly developing the concept. My master's thesis, which was interdisciplinary, meaning I had to basically do it all myself, like it was a nightmarish challenge to bring together the thinkers that I was bringing together. Like that was only the beginning of something that I've been doing underground since then. And it's like, hell yeah, I want to talk about it. But do I want to talk about it with people who aren't even reading this shit? Much less like tuning into this shit. It's like, no. And I say it at the very beginning of Waypoint. Like, it creates extreme writer's block for me to write to an audience of people at like the Mikey standard, right? The Mikey standard, it says we should write to people. We don't really understand something unless we are writing to, assuming an audience that doesn't know, that is not initiated, putting things in plain speak, like so a 5-year-old could understand, so that the drunk dude at the bar could understand. Oh yeah, that's a good ideal. I hold myself to that standard in my mind and I work towards that goal, but I'm not there yet. I'm not a master. I have a master's. That doesn't make me a master. I'm a dumb fuck. I'm a student. I'm a distracted attention economy junkie. I have to set up this whole fucking structure to incentivize myself, to hold myself accountable, and to hopefully develop some form of assessment so that the quality of the work that I develop as a mature thinker in my later life is actually worthwhile enough to withstand some of the tests of time. Because if I thought that I could just pen that shit out right now like I'm a fucking natural genius, it's not going to happen. It's not going to be worthwhile. I'm just deluded. This is, to bring it back to the ideology of genius as like a sort of narcotic, a wish fulfillment, a self-congratulatory, yet nonetheless self-undermining, feel-good narrative that gives us a sense of belonging and balance and everything else. But no, it's not. It's not, though. The profound sort of subjective destitution that I started going through in 2020 wasn't just like a burnout with politics as it exists, but more importantly, it was like the realization that I had not been holding myself to the kinds of standards that I should have been holding myself to throughout my undergrad and master's years, or my graduate years. It just, and realizing that the institution hadn't really been enforcing those either, that the accountability and assessment structures were technically there, but not really operating. They're not really functioning, right? And a lot of the people who come to Theory Underground aren't people who are new to that realization. They're people who have burnt out multiple times and who have decided for whatever reason to get serious about philosophy and theory, not to just talk, name drop, and use jargon, but actually to like sink your teeth into the steak and potatoes, right? To actually like be able to flesh out an idea in accordance to the Mikey standard requires, though, for me, and this is bringing it back to what I say at the beginning of Waypoint, it requires for me, though, a period of moratorium from trying and just speaking in a way that feels natural. I'm not trying to use rhetoric. I'm trying to speak in a way that uses natural, that feels natural. Okay. And developing the theory has meant a lot of not publishing, writing for myself, writing just to figure out things. But at the same time, I'm still motivated by the attention economy, and I don't really learn stuff if I'm not doing educational related things. And when I turn on a stream and I do a whole thing, other people go, oh, wow, I got a lot out of that. Yeah, but did you really, though? Do we really share a basis in some of these concepts and thinkers at this point? And so I have felt like, and this is where Theory Underground comes in, like actually presenting courses on the website has been a big deal for kind of just like helping people understand, like, if you want to be a fellow traveler, if you really want to think about these things with me, there are ways into doing that that will give us a basis from which to then build off of over time, right? And the thing is like, we're in for the long game here. This isn't like oh, we got it all figured out. I guess that's really the thing that irks me, is when a person acts like they've got it all figured out. And it's like, dude, I've been here for over 10 years now studying this shit, and I'm still a baby. I'm getting my footing in the process, right? I'm able to articulate, formulate. I do have a little bit of a foothold in like a lot of text across a lot of different fields, but it's gonna take another 20 years to mature as a thinker. I am a baby. I will cringe at this in the future. It's okay. It's okay to be like, no, I don't have it all figured out. In that sense, I am an anti-influencer. In that sense, I quit Theory of Play, went underground to become an anti-influencer, to say I don't have it figured out. I would like to try to understand these things with people who are serious. And so when I say like, oh, but have you read my book? You want to stream about it, but have you read my book? Oh, I don't read. And so that was what the person was essentially saying in the conversation on Twitter, was like, oh, but I don't read. Which would be like, okay, look, you want to post about philosophy ideas, you watch a lot of videos, listen to podcasts, you don't really like to read. This person's not working class, he's not working. So this is what he does full time, and he's got a sort of influencer role. And so he's like really got no excuses. But he's got lots of excuses. See, because I'm not tearing him a new one. Only because this applies to me. This applies to everybody. He's just the most recent person to trigger this. And he did ask me to be a capricious, jaded jerk. So I'm just not going to do it about the idea. I'm going to do it about the mode. The mode in question is one that says, I've basically got it all figured out. I've got nothing really to learn from people who are serious about these fields. And books that have withstood the tests of time for centuries, that have figured out things that are prerequisites to anything that I talk about online, to taking it seriously. Whether or not they're correct, they will at least debunk certain presuppositions you're taking for granted right now, right? And it's like, you got to work through it in the same way that like meditation or therapy or working out, those things are important for various other kinds of lifestyles, right? Like, you got to work out if you want to do jujitsu, right? Of course you do. Okay. But if you want to do philosophy and theory, you don't have to read and write. Reading and writing is working out for your mind. You think that you're working out by consuming junk food on these platforms. It's not junk food if it's going to help you actually learn to read and write. But if that's been a dead end for you, if you have been there, like this person, for the last 5 years and it's not helping you, there's a problem here. Who are the 3 pro-literacy authors you suggested reading? Frederick Douglass, Sherman Alexie, and John McWhorter in Losing the Race, which I mean, it's a controversial book. I'm not necessarily supporting its thesis. It's interesting. It's worth reading and taking seriously. He still is a prominent voice in the world of talking about racism and such. But in Losing the Race, he talks about the experiences of growing up and being bullied for reading, right? And that's why I kind of brought him into the group of these pro-literacy authors that I was talking about. This balances my frustration with professors fleshing out supposed power discourse, said Nick Wilson. Does it? Can you expand on that, Nick, if you're still there in the chat? Let me know what you mean by that. Yeah, that post-literate talk makes me cringe, says Purple Flush. thanks. That kind of brings me back around to the real thing that actually just got to me and actually just made me go, God, I need to do a live stream about this though, for real, is all of the rest of everything else would have been fine. What really quilted it though was trying to not just rationalize it, but naturalize and essentialize it, which is to say, this person goes, oh no, basically, I don't need to read. Dave, you're a deep thinker. You go deep, but you also specialize. I stay at the bird's eye view. I get the broader scope. I get high resolution images. What? That sounds like me talking to an analytic philosopher who drills down into some logic crunching conceptual analysis, but never develops a broader sociological, anthropological, structural, linguistic, like kind of understanding that gets then run through the likes of Marx, Heidegger, Levinas, Lacan, etc. Like you're talking to an analytic philosopher, it's like we're in different worlds, and it really does feel like I've got like this broad sort of generalist approach that has feet in many of the different humanities and has to be familiar with like all these different people versus like someone who's like, no, I don't even need history. I can just drill down into straight up like conceptual analysis of concepts being developed in the sciences, and I can just, apply logic to them, and that's philosophy. Okay. But that's what it sounded like. This person is like, oh no, I've got the bird's eye view. I've got the forest. You've got the tree. To me, oh, Dave, no, you're just a specialist. You just are a deep thinker. I'm just what were the words being used? Like, and I see this everywhere. This is indicative of like our times. This is about who I was and I'm trying not to be. This is about a lot of people who are hooked onto TikTok, hooked onto Twitch, and addicted to YouTube or Instagram, who are like, oh yeah, I love to talk ideas, but really they just like to talk and be seen, right? Seen in quotes, right? The idea that something got essentialized and naturalized there. I really want to wrap up this stream here in the next like 20 minutes. But the idea that something's being naturalized and essentialized is I'm being called just this kind of person that is deep. No, I'm not. I'm an idiot. There was a reason the theory plebe was called theory plebe. It's like I'm trying to develop myself, but I'm not this fucking mastery. I'm like this profound, deep thinker who spends 8 hours a day parsing the most difficult and profound texts or ideas from the history. No, I'm not. Not even close. But by taking on these kinds of challenges, I get better at least, right? But guess what? They're challenges. So it adds insult to a sort of injury when you're like naturalizing it and essentializing it. No, Dave, that's just who you are. You just do that. Oh, if I just do that, then why was I functionally illiterate at the age of 23? Okay? No, that's not just who I am. It required incredible effort. And that effort is erased by the myth and ideology of genius. It's a myth and it's pure ideology. It's a self-congratulatory narrative that undermines you in the long term, but gives you a short-term sense of, hey, it's okay. It's okay that I'm just a junkie on the fucking attention economy, not doing reading, not doing writing. Look, there's nothing wrong with being a junkie on the attention economy if you can also do reading and writing. Oh, but Dave, I don't have the time energy. Aren't you the thinker of time energy? Yeah. I'm not a defeatist about it, though. I want to have a life. And if I can't have a life, come on. I'm gonna find a way to keep this thing alive. So don't just give up. And then the best part is like, or the worst part, it's not like this person even gives up and says, look, I'm a pathetic loser. I don't even like take this shit seriously. I just like to bullshit online. It's all meaningless. Instead, they're like, I've got it all figured out. And I'm just a different kind of smart. I just have a different learning style. And then you see people, sometimes they'll use, I'm just autistic, or they'll go, I'm just ADHD. Oh my God. Look, I don't care if you have dyslexia. I don't care if you are blind. I don't care if you are in a wheelchair. We all have our advantages and disadvantages. And no one's helping you if they're telling you you don't have to raise to some kind of standard, if you don't have to find some way of bettering yourself. Now, it's going to be different for different people, the different kinds of challenges that different kinds of people have. Like for a person in a wheelchair, just going about your business is itself an achievement, right? It's an admirable feat, absolutely. And so what's considered a challenge to you is going to be relative, of course. But the point is like to act like I just have this easy. It's like, okay, maybe I've not been clear enough in my presentation on the attention economy. It's not easy. It's insanely difficult. I spend a lot of time having a very hard time focusing, and I spend most of that time failing. The overwhelming majority of the time that I try to focus on things is a failure. It doesn't stop me from trying though. So I want to show you all here on the screen. Let's figure out a way to do this. I'm going to show you all on the screen time lapses of a couple of work sessions recently to demonstrate my point. I've been experimenting with since I've acknowledged the fact that I am indeed addicted to the attention economy in some way, and trying to find a way to use it to force me to do better. And actually do the things that I feel like I'm called to do, and actually work out time energy theory and write this book that I've been writing it for a couple of years now. I just gotta get it done, but it's drawing out forever. So what are the things to force it? And part of the point is like Theory Underground sets me up. First of all, that book will be soon. Okay, that book will be out soon. That book will be out on tour this fall. But the magnum opus book that I want to write isn't going to be around for another decade to 20 years. And Theory Underground is to build a sort of structure of accountability and assessment for me, to force me through the hoops, to really make me the kind of person who could write something and go, I'm proud of this. And I think it's a worthy contribution, right? It's a fundamental challenge to all existing ideologies. And if they try to incorporate it, they will have to fundamentally change in their very nature. And reality will have to accommodate, because it will light in people a desire that, once articulated, doesn't go away. I think it is powerful. I think it does matter. And maybe that's just what I got to tell myself to get my, get through the night or whatever. But I think a lot of people want to make some kind of a contribution, and their interest in philosophy and theory is not just so that they can use rhetoric to manipulate people to their positions, but they also might be like, well, I'm probably full of shit. I should critique ideology, and who knows what will come out the other side of it. I should spend a period of time in moratorium and just think and learn to think. And that's inherently worthwhile. And maybe that shouldn't be something that only the PMC gets to do, but should be accessible to working class people who really want to put in the effort. Maybe working class people who have more hurdles trying to achieve such goals, who have more problems posed on their attention spans, who have less time and energy, should still have access to these things, and not just influencers who say, hey, I did the reading for you, I got it all figured out, and here's everything you need to know about it. That's why I'm an anti-influencers, because I'm saying, no, I did the reading, and I don't understand it, and I have to go back to it, but it's already transforming me, and it's inherently worthwhile, and I hope that you do it too, and here's some ways that you can get involved with doing it too, because theory, once you get addicted to it, is its own drug, and it's a hell of a drug.
Tight, yeah! Tight.
Yeah, tight, yeah. So we're going to switch over here to the, I'm going to show you this time lapse. Let's see if I can switch over here. Switch to, watch this everybody, changing the scene here. Okay, this is a mess, first of all. I apologize that this is such a mess. But this is just, like, I'm saying it's a mess because there's all these, like, blank files. I'm just not going to delete them right now. But as an example of what I'm saying is like the most difficult thing, studying, reading, writing, the basics of having a cultivated mind, like it's not a joke. And I understand that the professional managerial class, especially on the left, has used this as a bludgeon over working class people. Oh, you fucking ignorant, you fucking backwards deplorable, here's what you have to say if you're going to be woke, or if you don't fucking say the right words, if it doesn't resonate with you, if it doesn't make sense to you, well, then you're probably just bad or ignorant or backwards. Like this whole command and conquer and divide approach instead of like education and reason, right? Like the idea, oh, well, I've got credentials and I've done the reading. I put in the time to do the reading. You're a worker. Mind your place. You should follow me. This whole influencer model uses the pretense of reading and writing to lord virtue over people, right? And obviously what's presupposed is time, energy, and all these other things. But what are we going to do about that? We still have to live in this world, right? And so learning how to read and write for oneself, it's indispensable, okay? And I'm still trying to figure it out. As a working class piece of shit who's spent my whole fucking life trying to do better, right? The point is not, oh, so that I can be better than working class people who don't read. No, not every working class person needs to read. Some working class people can play the violin and I fucking can't. Guess what? That's inherently valuable. But if you're the kind of person who likes to think and talk philosophy and you're not playing the violin, right? You're not doing jiu-jitsu, right? What's working out for theory and philosophy? It's reading and writing. I hate to break it to you, but it is. It's indispensable. So if you want a genuine challenge that can give your life meaning, this is one of the essential pieces of the process. If you want to fall in love with the process instead of your own ego having a bunch of positions. Okay. But I'm going to show these time lapses because I just think it's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. When I say that I don't have it figured out, what do I mean? I'm going to go and find the oh, you know what? Because it's a nightmare to try to find it. What do I mean by a time lapse of me reading? I did post one to Instagram, so check this out. I'll show that, and then I'll show examples of what normally happens. So what I posted was this one. Traditional philosophy of science, as well as critiques of the division plus failures of natural science versus social human science, take for granted and cover over both undertakings. As both have time as a horizon and condition of possibility, Heidegger thinks an application of the phenomenological method to time is necessary to rethink what it means to be. For the sciences of nature versus history are the phenomena of being in time. Heidegger's History of the Concept of Time is the lecture series he gave right before writing Being in Time. The first few chapters are the best introduction to being in time you'll get, which is why I'll be doing some lectures on it to prepare for Being in Time this summer. Stay tuned. Stay tuned for some introductory lectures and get ready for diving into Being in Time this summer. Right, and so anyone who didn't have eyes on screen, it is a cool format, shows the time lapse of us reading in a coffee shop in Guadalajara, reading, and I'm taking notes on the laptop while reading an actual paperback book in my hands. God, it's so much easier when you're holding a paperback, but it's so much more, if you're committed to taking notes and you're really pushing yourself, it just being on the screen the whole time, it hurts your eyes, it's distracting, blah, blah, blah. And then it has everything I was just saying is actually written. You can see the words above the time lapse, and then you can see the front cover of the book off to the side of that with in like a photo. Okay, so that's a cool format idea of like doing time lapses. And the initial experiment was to be like, oh fuck, you know, I could hold myself accountable by using the attention economy. If I put this on Instagram, but I don't normally follow through with reading and writing as a practice, as a way of life, then I will feel like a poser. And feeling like a poser will motivate me to do it more, right? It's not faking it till you make it. It's becoming guilty for not doing it enough because you are showing people when you do it. You're just not showing people when you fail. And so you're going to try to do it more, right? I don't know. That makes sense to me. It might not make sense to everybody else. And it might not work for everybody else. And it might not even be something that I do in the future. But it's an idea, an experiment, and it's something that I'm trying. So yeah, this is my Instagram, Theory Underground. Check it out. I've got tons of original memes from shows and movies. And I find ways of explaining concepts and theory and shit like that with memes, because if I can simplify it to a meme, then that helps me. But also, I just sometimes shitpost because it's fun. And it's a form of entertainment, and I'm addicted to that as well. But let's get back up to it. So what's an example of an average theory plebe or Dave and Ann like reading session? This is a lot more indicative of what actually happens. Let's watch this time lapse. Oh, sorry. I gotta start it over. Okay. Okay, I'm making promotional stuff on Photoshop. I'm going on Instagram. I'm going on other social media. Okay, here we go. Now I'm actually on the PDF. I'm making some notes. That's good. Oh, now I'm off. I'm doing other stuff now. What am I doing? Oh, I did a little bit of writing. That's good. I'm doing a bunch of other stuff. Oh, now I'm gone even. I was kind of sick. I wasn't even feeling good this day. But this is, like, yeah, it's not completely unproductive, but it's also not, it's not like this person who is saying, I'm just this deep thinker, right? I'm just insulted by a person who thinks that I'm a deep thinker, right? I'm like, no, I'm not a deep thinker. I want to be. I work my ass off to be. But it's not like I've achieved this thing. It's not intrinsic to my being. When a person's like, no, I'm just like all over the place and I skim the surface of everything and I make new connections because I do that. Like they're basically saying, I'm delusional with Tari. Oh, yeah, you think so. I could say all of those things too, and it would be very self-serving and an easy way out from actually taking on challenges. But no productive shit I've ever done when it comes to theory comes from the skimming fucking this so-called non-linear approach. First of all, linearity, the idea of like starting from the beginning and going to the end, finishing one book and then going to the next. I don't believe that shit, first of all, but I try at least to follow out a thinker for the whole span of an introduction and then work through the chapters, at least at the level of listening to it as like being read aloud by like a robot, text to speech reader, right? Which is why you've got dyslexia, you've got ADHD, you've got whatever your if you want to do philosophy and theory, and you've got handicaps, then you've got bigger challenges ahead of you, but no one is doing you a service if they just go, oh yeah, so you just have a different learning style. Don't worry about it. No. You just have to find ways to counteract that. In my case, what that means is I have to, on days that I just can't focus and look at a page, because it really does happen more often than not. If I cannot look at a book and turn pages and stay seated because I've got too much excitation in my body, too much stimulation, and I got to do other stuff. I can multitask and listen to a book at the bare minimum. Does that mean I will get as much from it? Absolutely not. And I'm not going to run around telling people, I read that book. No, I'm not. I'm not going to tell people I read that book. I'm going to tell people I skimmed that book enough to know if I'm going to go back to it and try to develop a more intimate understanding of it. But I'm not going to fucking dismiss it if I don't really understand it. And you definitely don't really understand it if you just skimmed it. Genius is not the work. Genius is in the work, not the mind, says Songs 4K. Yeah, okay. If that was the definition, sure. When I say the ideology of genius, I mean like it's when a person's just like, oh, well, you're just this deep thinker. You do that. I'm this other type of person. No, you're not. And that's not a special kind of genius either. Everything feels profound when you keep yourself outside of the conversation. Everything feels profound when you don't feel the need to tarry with fundamentally different perspectives that have withstood the tests of time. Right? Everything feels so profound. Every little idea that pops in your head feels so intoxicating, and you get so high on your own shit. If you're not humbling yourself before masters, right? You used to not be able to. This shit was outlawed. The church didn't want you to do it. The caste system didn't want you to do it. It's radical to do it. Read Frederick Douglass. That shit is real. It's amazing. I was just reading Norman Finkelstein's new book, I'll Burn That Bridge When I Get to It, and he quotes a passage from Douglass. I had just read this exact same, I skimmed it. I was listening while working at Amazon, but I listened to some Frederick Douglass, an entire one of his books working at Amazon one night. And so anyway, but Norman Finkelstein quoted like one of my favorite passages in I'll Burn That Bridge When I Get to It. And it is fire. I'm not going to bring it up right now and share it because I am trying to close out the stream, but I just want to go over the chat really quick. I'm going to scroll back up and actually work through a few of these before I close out. So let's do it like this. I'm going to make it so everybody can see what I'm looking at. Okay, close that. Okay, here's the chat. Okay, what's going on, chat? Larry David lives for the awkward moments. By the way, some people, like especially on Twitch, they get so upset if you're not responding to their comments and you're not kind of like up to date with everything they've said every step of the way, and they will leave. And I tried so hard when I was early to streaming to actually respond to, and I took like the whole like, oh, you're not responding fast enough. I took it to heart and actually tried. And it destroys your ability to follow a chain of reasoning for very long. And as you can tell, if you watch this stream, I go all over the place, but I at least bring it all back together. I try to. I've been working on it. I don't just make excuses for myself. I'm going to get better at it. This Twitch shit, though, is absolutely moronic. What it does to people's brains is absolutely destructive. I do not recommend it. YouTube is far superior because many of you started this video wherever it was, and then you went back to the beginning and started speeding up forward. And a lot of you are watching this in the future, and you just watch it all the way through. So I'm just saying, you are able to follow a longer chain of reasoning, right? With a bunch of examples that come back around and quilts everything. You're able to do that. People addicted to the Twitch communities, they're not, because you cannot go back to the beginning and speed up to catch up. When you come to it, you just come into it wherever it is, and that's all you have. It's fucking crazy. It's absolutely terrible. And there is this weird norm of, you need to respond to me the moment I say something in the chat. Or like, you should always have your eyes on chat. Always have eyes on chat. Always, always, always. So anyway, the people who stick around, like Tony Stark, who's been here for over a year. I just met him in Guadalajara. He's a really cool guy. Ann and I both hung out with him. I got tacos with Tony. Fucking dope guy. I hope to do a stream with him in the near future. He's also an educator, teaches philosophy to high schoolers, totally based. I just don't know. I don't know if I would have people like him if I was still on Twitch. I just don't. I think that the medium is the message. The medium changes the messenger, and it definitely changes the audience in the McLuhanite sense. And so we'll talk more about that tomorrow in the stream tomorrow with Anne. But for right now, Finnegan's Wake is in part a history of writing for the, I don't even know how to say it, the ABC-minded? The ABC'd minded? I didn't know that. That makes me want to read Finnegan's Wake. Really? Thanks, Songs 4K. That's really good to know. I've always been interested in that book, but I've never really known much about it. Tony says, I try to reach the average Fortnite player and to examine his own life. Yeah. Right? Our job is to catch a person who's just being brought along through the algorithm and to say, look, everyone's selling you some bullshit. Here's what they're not going to give you. Here's what has been kept from you historically. This is what only the elite have ever had access to. Concepts, radically divergent perspectives, followed through lengthy trains of thought that have persisted the tests of time because they are inherently worthwhile passing through, because they transform you in a way not to make you dogmatically subservient, but in a way that pulls your own bullshit out, helps you see things that you didn't realize you were taking for granted. Soda Cabbage says, no, I don't like being challenged, haha. To be honest, I've read only 3 books this year, but that's pretty good for me. Congratulations, Soda Cabbage. Even if you'd only read 1 book or half of a book this year, nothing that you actually do should be a diminishment, or should be diminished by this fucking this moralizing screed that I'm doing, right? Like, my goal is only to challenge myself, to force myself to do better, and at the exact same time, like, hopefully encourage a handful of people who genuinely want to be fellow travelers to also, like, level up, challenge themselves. Look, challenges are fucking awesome. Without real challenges, like, it's none of it's worthwhile. Bless you, Ann. I heard you sneezing downstairs. I don't know if anyone else heard you, but bless you. Bless you. Influencer content is equivalent to having a bag of Doritos. It just entertains the taste buds, but it isn't nutritious, we say around here. For real, Tony Stark. And by the way, a bag of Doritos in Mexico is better than a bag of Doritos in the States. Well, not on its own, but if you get the chascas, it is, because they take a knife and they cut the bag open at its belly. They open it and they fucking scoop a bunch of, like, corn in there, and then the corn has like some, like, mayo and cheese and spices and some other stuff, and it's just like the craziest thing I've ever eaten, and it's really good. Probably not the healthiest, but I ate it to be polite, and then I was like, damn, this is actually really good. Nick Wilson says, I've been studying philosophy on my own for a while as well, so wading through academic discourse just bothers me at times. Look, I do not believe in contemporary academia. Like, I just don't believe in it. That's why the Theory Underground, like, the first course of Theory Underground this year was the idea of universities, because, like, if you read that book and then compare it to what is currently passing itself off as university discourse, it's just not on the level. It's just not. Now, it's also going to be frustrating trying to read someone like Kant or Heidegger or Marx, because they're writing in a different time and they have a fundamentally different voice. But it's going to be better for all of us to read people from a variety of backgrounds with a variety of voices, instead of just reading people who have the same stilted academic fucking way of talking, you know. Yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely not for standard academic lit. Though, I mean, I hate to say that, because I really do owe a significant debt to a lot of articles that would not have ever been published if not for academic journals. I just feel very jaded about the fact that these are, like, put behind paywalls, that they're not accessible, and I have, like, a whole very radical thesis about what should be done about it that I'm not going to drop here. And it's not what you probably think. It's not. Soda Cabbage says genius plebe or pleb should have been the name instead of theory plebe. Genius plebe. Yeah, that'll be just, after 5 years, I'll get overly confident, and I'll say I'm a guru now. Everybody, I've got it all figured out. Songs 4K says, I'd choose not this one in all caps. What was the not this one in reference to? And Snellgrove says, time-lapse with the e-reader is not as cool as with a book, LOL. Also, coffee shop study culture is kind of non-existent in Mexico, at least what we could see. So we ended up in a Starbucks. True. You go into a lot of coffee shops, they don't even have outlets, much less Wi-Fi. It's like, oh, what, people have conversations in this country still? Not a good environment for working on my laptop. But obviously excellent for community building and stuff. So it's it's good on the one side, drawback if you're trying to do work on a laptop. So we ended up in a Starbucks, but we really do appreciate how much more just hanging out people do here. Like, that was one of the big things. We just go downtown, and people, they're not just sitting around waiting for things. They're sitting around being with one another for hours, just hanging out. Parents hanging out with their kids play kind of in, like, the square or whatever. It's really cool. And because, ice cream and food is cheap, it's not just like these sort of, like, PMC petty bourgeois types. I say that as a spectrum, not because those are the same thing. They're not the same thing. but PMC, two petty bourgeois types of people who are eating out. No, it's everybody's eating out and hanging out afterwards. And there's a lot more culture as a result of it. And it's something that we're not used to after living in Boise, which is like super gentrified and has a lot of Californian money being pumped into it right now. It's like becoming this little California mecca, so expensive. Only people you see downtown are all like of a certain elite variety. Soda Cabbage says, those big ha-has were just when you were quoting imitate. Oh, okay. Nan says, nutritious burritos. Yeah, for real. Ann says, thank you. Yeah, we love a good local coffee shop, and we love the culture here. All right, everybody. So I've read off the last bit of the chat here. Yeah, so I guess to sum it all up, I don't think that the point should be, right? This is a normative conversation. I'm essentially talking like etiquette and morals or some kind of shit like that, values and goals. But I don't think that the goal should be just to develop one's ideas, but should be to find a way to counteract the most pernicious tendencies of the attention economy. Do not do apologetics for it. Do not act like this is just your learning style. Look, there's something inherently valuable to being able to use my headphones to listen to a book while I go wash dishes, or while I go for a drive, or while I'm working at Amazon. Absolutely, because it is better than nothing. But stop telling yourself you're just that person, that's just who you are, and that's just the way things are, and that's the end of it. We have to have not just higher standards for ourselves, but we need to desire more. We need to desire something called excellence, right? People think, oh, well, perfectionism will drive you crazy. Yeah, striving for excellence is not striving for perfectionism. Perfectionism takes the ideas or the place or the moment for the thing itself. But excellence is about a process and honing your craft. If you're serious about thinking, it should not be something kept to universities. And guess what? The people who lord over you the fact that they went to university, I don't know that they've really honed their craft. It's not obvious. Having a degree does not mean you've honed your craft. I got a degree, and I had definitely not honed a craft at that point. I was a fucking wreck, okay? I still am in a way. But, it's a process, and that's the whole point. So, genius, don't ever fucking tell me I'm a genius or a deep thinker. No, I'm a tryhard. And I guess it might be a compliment if you think that I've made it look easy enough that it comes naturally, but it doesn't. And I don't, but let's be fair. The person doesn't really read my work, doesn't really follow my shit. They just have this impression of me. It's just an impression, okay? I don't know who else had that impression. I hope that I've done something to undermine it. If you feel an intense sense of writer's block, though, or if you feel an intense sense of writer's block, then I do want to draw your awareness before closing out to this new, oh shit, wrong thing on the screen. What is that? No. Hold on one sec. Got to change it. Here we go. So, what did I just post? Oh, it's right here. Right, so he says, it's got Robin talking to Batman getting slapped, right? You've probably seen the format. And Robin's saying, I have writer's block, so I haven't been able to write. And then Batman slaps him across the face and says, you still haven't read Dave's new post on Theory Underground about writer's block and the fuck it button. Okay, I got a lot of fantastic encouragement for this post. I got several fellow travelers, people who are seriously committed to doing theory, but have been constipated in terms of their writing. They read this article and were like, this really helped me. It unlocked a flood of writing. I really appreciate it. That makes me feel good. Okay. So right here on the screen, you see https://theory-underground.com/publications, or you just go to theory-underground.com and then you go to the publications tab, and then you scroll down. That's all you gotta do. Just scroll down. You'll see it. It's right there. It's called writer's block and the fuck it button. What is the fuck it button? I tell a story. It's one of Anne's favorite stories. It's from my time in Thailand when I was studying Thai Buddhism. I did a sort of exchange program, went into a lot of student debt to do it. It was fantastic. And met these Chinese guys, and I had to explain the fuck it button to them because we were talking about jumping off of a cliff. Go read it for yourself. Mastery versus students supposed to know we need a new master, but first we need lectures. Like my defense of someone who's tried to master a field for 10 or 15 years actually doing a lecture, I believe it or not, I actually have to make a defense of that because people are like, oh, we're all just rhizomes now. We don't have to do that. We'll just have discussion groups and pretend we know what we're talking about. I say, no. We need people who presume an audience of people who are trying hard, who did the reading, who are confused, who don't know what's going on, and your job is to help them connect the things up and actually see if what they're doing is it or not, right? Like there's a responsibility here for educators, and this new left bullshit about the flipped classroom, it's a dead end. It's a dead end. Not because it wasn't a good idea. There's a lot of reasons to think it was a good idea, but the reason it's not good in practice is because when we're all so busy and we don't hold ourselves to real accountability and assessment structures, the things that demand our time and energy and win out over the things we care about the most are always going to be fucking bullshit, where there is an actual accountability and assessment structure in place, like your job, right? You actually need those structures. Critique Theory and Ideology is also a very important article on the site. I do believe that there's a difference between ideology and theory, that we have to think through that difference, and that critique should not be reductive dismissals, that we actually have to understand something inside out. And so that's important. I developed my critique of Benedict Cryptofash and his Substack, The Anti-Left Marxist. I developed my critique of him here. Like today, he posted like a new phase of his Substack that is now going to basically do the thing that I was critiquing him for not doing. So that was really cool. I on the Theory Underground Substack, I cross-posted his shit and added some like recommendations or whatever. But I don't like his mode on Twitter because I don't like Twitter and I don't like the mode on Twitter. I try to stay off of Twitter. Like the shit that I got into today on Twitter was just because I went to reach out to somebody because I lost my phone, so I can't talk to them on WhatsApp or through text messages. So I went there to talk to them, and then all of a sudden, just the people who always want to do stuff, but they always reach out on Twitter and they never read. It was just like, God, guys. I just wrote this fucking article about this very problem, but you're not even going to read it. Put all that work into it, you're not even going to read it. So it says right here, all my homies read. And it's that gangbanger, like all the homies read format. All the dudes got their pants down around their knees. Like literally, I'm not speaking metaphorically. They've actually got them on their knees because it's a meme. They're joking, I think. But anyway, yeah. Theory-underground.com publications. With that, everybody, I'm going to close this thing out. If you do want to read the 3 Principles of Study as a Way of Life before it is published, I would be honored. And so do let me know on theoryunderground.com. Send me a direct message, and I will share you an early... Let's show you a link so you can see it ahead of time. You'll have the ability to comment on it. You'll be able to message me, direct message, ask me questions, or be like, oh, okay, well, whatever it is, problematize it. Because I want it to be useful. I want it to be inspirational, but also I want it to be a real kick in the pants for people who need that kind of thing. Because like I do at least. I need that kind of thing. And so, that's what it aims to do. That's what I'm trying to do here. With that, everybody, I really appreciate you all sticking around for so long. I'm going to share I'm going to close that thing that I was trying to show. I'm going to share the $50 patron tier sort of commercial. It's a testimonial of sorts from our fellow traveler, Bert. He is beautiful soul, a beautiful soul. He's always been a beautiful soul, but he never really read. And he had a lot of books, but he never really read. And it was getting involved with myself and Brian. I talk about the Brian standard, I talk about the Bert standard, I talk about the Mikey standard in this piece, the 3 principles of study as a way of life. The Bert standard for reading is the one that I'm about to show here. And I call it the Bert standard because he's the one who talks about it all the time. But yeah, he got inspired with this approach to texts because he had lived his whole life without really doing it. And as he started to do it in his retirement, it basically saved his life. And so with that, everybody, I appreciate you all for sticking around. I can't believe you beat all their algorithmic incentives to go do other things with your night. And for the people watching this in the future, much love. Do like and comment and all that shit. It actually makes a difference to my ego. Not that that matters, but I mean, at a certain basic level, it's stupid, but it does. So do something. Say something. Quote me on something I said and say you like it or think it's dumb. I don't know. Do something. Say something. It's always crickets down there. Come on. Change that. All right. Peace.
I couldn't believe it when I saw that poster. Baudrillard in Boise, fucking Idaho. Are you kidding me? It was virtually an answer to an unspoken prayer, It really was. And I just couldn't believe that somebody was interested in the things that I was interested in, that I had been interested in for years and had kind of given up on in futility. I'd labored in solitude for so long. I had no one to talk to about it, no one to bounce ideas off of. It just vastly accelerated my ability, I don't get too philosophical, to interrogate, to inquire, and to see connections between things.
And so the theory underground that Dave is developing in this mission is trying to reach an audience of people who aren't just doing philosophy in a university setting. Why is there an advantage to doing philosophy outside of an academic setting?
Well, the neat thing is that you can really drill down. When you're in school, you have to do 50 things, and you do them all partially. And it's like you're digging a well, and you're digging very shallow wells. When you can drill down deep and take your time and really get into something, especially with a company of fellows, that you get into the slipstream of a great philosopher, and you just have to take the deep dive. But initially, a lot of these philosophers, they're speaking to a tradition, they're trying to resolve specific problems, and they just assume you know what those are, that you've had their life experience. So the first time you read them, you're just trying to get the lay of the land, and you may well have some insights. You may wrongly associate certain things with what they're saying, but then you'll maybe look at a secondary text, and now, since you have something to bring to the table, all the lights start going off. And then when you read the philosopher the second time, you can read them more knowledgeably, and so you're looking for things, you're better able to follow along, you're not left behind so much. The third reading, though, and these are for profound books. You don't have to read everything like this. But for a profound text, the third reading is where you've learned enough that you relate it to everything else that you begin to see the connectedness between what this philosopher is doing and the implicit, unstated situation that they were speaking to initially, you know something about that. And you see the connection between that and all sorts of other things. And you connect it to your life and the way you live and move through the world and the way you see things and interact with people. And you are not just absorbing, you're creating. You're a co-creator. When it's all said and done, you just have to put it into your own words. And there's a danger of reductionism there. But when you put it into your own words and you're bringing all these different strands together, it's really phenomenal. And that's what the third reading does.
So, a few years ago, Dave, running the Theory Clip channel, had a Patreon going and
Right.
discontinued accepting money from people. But since then, you have continued to make a donation monthly. And
Right.
It's obviously very meaningful to Dave, meaningful to me as well, being Dave's partner.
Right.
And so, why do you do that? Essentially.
Well, Dave brings people together. Whatever Dave is doing is valuable. And my life was completely changed. And I'm grateful. I can't afford to give Dave $50 a month, but I do because it brings me joy. Every time I get my Social Security, the first thing I do is send $50 to Dave. And my heart sings. And it's a sense of gratitude. I don't feel obligated to do it. I want to do it. And I want to do whatever I can to help Dave do for other people what he did for me. And I want that to continue. And it's truly, I take great joy in it. It's the best $50 I spend a month. Really is. If you can plant a seed where a handful of people meet each other and they can all have the experience that we've had face to face with each other, that would be awesome.